Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another tour and final thoughts. This time it's going to be for what is going to be named the Chat Camp City, a city that was built around the Chat Camp here, which is home to hundreds of different sort of viewers on the Twitch channel. Basically, it was all inclusive. You said hello, you got a place in the Chat Camp. The Chat Camp is broken up into different teams, which is basically were just created as we went through and filled different spaces of the Chat Camp. So we have, it's a big giant nature reserve. Everybody, basically the homeless chat, they get allocated, the city allocates them into a giant homeless camp up on the mountain. And everybody lives in tents. A few lucky people might have actually gotten some cabins or fire watch towers or something like that, depending on, why and such, but different reasons and things maybe. But for the most part, we have the Shire down here, very nice, and then we have Team Spruce Moose. We had the Team Cozy up here, which is actually really really nice. We're filling this up really late at night one night. Team Cozy's pretty cool. Then we have the Cliff Clingers, which are sort of along here, and it sort of extends through this uppermost skinny little uppermost pathway. We came down and then we did the Giant's Foot, Team Giant's Foot. Decent amount of tents got placed into here. All of these, of course, got filled with viewer names. And then we also have the Yogi, Team Yogi, which basically was a bunch of cabins, actually. So this is a little bit higher end. Some big cabins, a lot of smaller cabins, just a lot of cabins. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. And the final team that we were working on, you have to swoop all the way down into the front of the mountain. And this was the Granola Gang. And it actually, by the end of it, we actually pretty much filled this whole thing up too. All these different tents and stuff like that. We eventually come down and start sort of filling in different lean shelters and such. Heck, we even have a cable car that goes up to the front of this thing, which is great for the residents of the mountain and also for the visitors of the mountain as well. And then we have it sort of coming around here. So it's these sort of Granola Gang and sort of these different plateaus sort of coming along this way. But of course, like, the city didn't start with the Chat Camp, right? We had to build the city itself. This was the first tile that we ended up doing. This is on the Prussian Peaks, and there's a few different large mods that we're using. We're using the real-time mod, which basically syncs up the day-night cycle with the actual in-game time, which means people have to go to work at a certain time, they have to go to school at a certain time, they go home at a certain time. So it creates sort of like a flow that the Sims, you get these rush hours and you get these lulls, and it sort of creates like a little bit of a city behavior, right? You get to see the citizens actually moving about at logical times of day and stuff like that. 4 a.m. there's no traffic, but 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, it could be complete chaos. So having to actually design your roads and stuff to handle that rush hour traffic is actually kind of intense. This is where the city started. Also, we have realistic population. So you'll see a lot of low density in here. This is a relatively condensed city for a real pop city. This used to all be low dense. We came back in and renovated it with some high density. This is where the city, of course, started. We ended up putting in as part of the renovations, we ended up putting in a large campus here. Of course, this is right before the campus. This was the city that ended when the campus DLC was released. So with this city, we just tried to do a campus just with the stuff that we had in game. None of these are downloaded assets. It's just clever use of the game stuff. This is a high school, but we could pretend it's the art center. This is an elementary school, but we could pretend it's a science department. Some dormitories, which are just houses. Some academic faculty staff areas. These are added with the high-tech content creator pack that you can buy from Paradox, but it's made by just a community member, a modder, that they bundled into a little extra little DLC pack thing. Athletic center down here with the pool and the gymnasium and tennis courts and basketball courts and stuff like that, right? So you're going to see a lot of people parking here. That's because we are using Traffic Manager's realistic parking AI, like that enable parking AI. So basically, the Sims have to park. So that's why you're seeing, and you can never have too much parking at a campus. So of course, the premium parking is filling up. We got parking down here that's filling up. We got parking at the athletic center that's filling up, parking all on the roads here and all kinds of stuff. Tons of people parking. Tons of people parking anywhere we look. All the parking spots that are getting filled up. We have parking garages in some of these places as well to try to handle that. So that's a huge part of the infrastructure and the core design, trying to actually get these high density areas to get enough parking. And you can never have enough parking a lot of the time. But basically, the whole city was, the core of the city was designed around this sort of what ultimately became like a teardrop, right? This is kind of like a teardrop. This is a one-way loop, kind of a little bit different. It's not a freeway. It's not a continuation of this system because it only goes one direction. It only goes counterclockwise. It's just a loop. So it's just a giant loop, which was kind of interesting. So it kind of ended up being just a giant roundabout. Sort of the Death Star industrial area, which is kind of cool. These little sort of crop circle looking areas here. Lots of circles. That was kind of a theme of the city, just doing random stuff with circles and stuff and seeing what could work and what couldn't work. We ended up having a really nice bike highway all the way around here. We ended up doing a decent amount of infrastructure and detailing. We have cable cars to get people around. We also have a monorail that's for large sort of distant traveling. You can see in the distance some major city areas in the back there. Just some low density areas up here and over here. And as we sort of move towards this big bay, we ended up putting in a small tourist section here. This was one of the last things that we ended up doing, but it actually turned out pretty nice. I'm pretty actually happy with that. So into this big bay is that tourism sector. We have a large forestry area up here, which was the first industries area that we put in. We have some really nice switchbacks. Prussian Peaks is just an insane amount of terrain, and we tried not to mess with that too much. Here's some little swirly bits to try to get people up, to get them high, like to have them adjusting their elevation quickly. So kind of just an interesting way to do that instead of switchbacks, instead of terraforming. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I really like this this forestry area. We do a lot of the primary gathering up here. We send it to the stockpiles over here. Then we process it here, where we send it to the warehouses. We probably don't actually have enough warehouses, but we got some warehouses here and here and here. Those get sent to the rail a lot of the time, and then that gets shipped out. We also do have the cargo airport hub down here, which I'm just realizing, I guess it is connected to the rail, because the rail comes down here and it can connect back into that if they want to ship it out via air. Some really cool little switchbacks back here. Really like doing the sort of the infrastructure on this one. And the nature of this map means that we had to build a bit more spread out and such, of course. So this was the initial part of the city, and then Chat Camp sort of in the middle. We ended up sort of spreading through this valley area here, adding a bunch of residential, mostly low density, a little bit of high density, some European stuff just to kind of mix it in. Park maintenance buildings just for that utility. More little bits as we sort of go through this area that doesn't really have a lot of good building area. We did end up terraforming to make this sort of large circular and octagonal area, which I think is kind of cool. So this ended up being a large centralized area, all high density, including a middle that includes some large office buildings that support 1,000. This is 1,400 workers. 1,400 people can work there. That's the realistic population mod in effect. We have this amazing park, though, absolutely amazing park through here, this sort of octagonal park. I think we did such a good job with this. I think it looks good with inside the what is ultimately this downtown urbanized area. Man, I think that's really cool. I think we did a really good job with it. Of course, there's this octagon here that goes all the way around, that people can use to get around the park itself rather than having to cross the street. We got some people using that, finding it useful, which is awesome. So that's just a giant park around hole here. I thought that was pretty stellar and filled the space nice. I thought we did a lot of really nice little tree work. I like these little patches. I think the public transportation that we had on this map was pretty good. I think we spent a lot of time with that and just general infrastructure, which is really cool. Just some random stuff that we're kind of doing out here. We ended up putting in a lot of cargo airports just to try to help because a lot of the traffic was going through just sort of this main line, so doing anything we could to try to deter that. We ended up doing a sort of an industrial valley through here, through a different valley here. So this is a big industrial area and sort of culminated into a big agricultural sector, which I think looks quite nice. It's not massive, but I think it's a good ratio between the primaries and the secondaries in terms of the looks. Although we're definitely probably producing way too many of the primaries and not processing all of those into secondaries. Of course, we have the launch area out here. Got to have that. That's a bit of a tradition. Really cool, sort of natural looking area out here. Did we not fill it? I guess we never actually finished this completely. We never actually had that completely filled in. Huh, interesting. Very interesting. I don't remember leaving this high and dry, but I really like the road network back there. Really like the road network back here. Actually, I think I see what's going on here, guys. I think we actually had 81 tiles, but I only have 25 now. So we might not actually own these out here. That would be kind of awkward. That would be kind of awkward. Let's ignore that and go look at the last part of the city, which is a big giant oil. So we had forestry, agriculture, and oil. We haven't done oil for a while, but this was really cool. A giant 5-way interchange, which I think is super cool. Started off as a basic trumpet. We kept modifying it to add 4. We modified it to add 5. It goes through these little volcano areas just for the fun of it. Why? I don't know. Just for the fun of it. But I thought that was fantastic looking. Comes up into this roundabout here that distributes people to the 3 different main areas. Here's distribution, a little bit of secondary production, and mostly distribution. Over here we have secondary production. And then here we had the primary production and storage as well. So up here at the top we have the primary. And I think the way this works out is if you go here, you get to the primary. Then you slip off to go here to get it processed, then you slip off here to get it distributed, and so on and so forth. So there was kind of a logical flow to the oil area. And there was really never any traffic here or anything like that. I thought this oil area was pretty neat. I thought, just doing the different plateaus and having it sort of go up the side of this hill and then adding this waterfall that we worked on for a little bit here. I thought this was really, really neat little oil district. But I think overall the city had a lot of cool individual stuff. It doesn't really harmonize very well, but I think the octagonal area here is really, really neat. I think the chat camp is obviously legendary. We had hundreds of people participating in that. That was awesome. I think the oil area is cool. I think all of our forestry and agriculture, I think all of our industrial areas were really, really neat this time. I think a lot of the detail that we did in the initial sort of what really was just the initial box was actually quite high compared to what we usually do. And I think the public transportation use, we have ferries, monorails, cable cars. I think that was all really well done. This was a really, really fun city. I ended up not working on it for too long. We kind of got abruptly ended because of the campus announcement and release. But for the most part, this was a super cool one. Of course, we used real time, real pop, and real parking. So that was a lot of fun as well. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching this sort of tour and final thoughts on the chat camp and the latest city that we made and completed on the Twitch channel. So I will see you guys in the future for additional videos. Thank you so much, everybody.